Coming up on episode 67 of the Upful Life Podcast.
But then when I was like 9, hearing the guitar work in the Allman Brothers made me want to make that switch from piano to guitar. So started playing guitar, and I was progressing pretty quickly. So my dad would take me to like blues bars in Detroit to sit in. And I started meeting all those, like the blues musicians in Detroit from like the time I was basically 10, 11. And then when I was 11, my dad took me to see Robert Randolph and the Family Band. And Robert would do this thing where he'd call out guitar players from the audience, like, hey, who knows how to play guitar? And my dad got everyone in the section to point at me. Robert called me up, and I sat in for like 20 minutes.
You recognize it.
I love you very much.
Many people like him.
Where all the girls go.
Let's drink a toast forever and ever. Let's drink a toast forever and ever.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, and this is episode number 67, coming to you live and direct from my mom's crib in Center City, Philadelphia. Illadelph's Illest, all the way live from the 215, you know how we do. Just back from Jazz Fest. So grateful you are tuning in.
Welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ivan Neville.
We're back, episode number 67, and it's a little bit different than normal because I'm coming to you from Philadelphia. Unfortunately, after Jazz Fest, my mom took a bit of a tumble and fractured her hip, emergency hip replacement surgery, and I hopped on the first thing smoking, headed back to Philly, help her through the next few weeks. From the surgery and the hospital to the rehab, eventually back to her apartment, hopefully sometime this summer to her beloved Jersey Shore. I just wanted to let folks know that I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants this episode, but I'm going to do my best to bring it to you per usual. I apologize that it's about 2 weeks late. Obviously, it's been a bit of a hectic time. Part of that is because I did New Orleans Jazz Fest with my mom. This year I did wire to wire, all of the entire enchilada. And my mom came down about halfway through when we did second weekend together. She was amazing the whole time. It was really unfortunate that when she got home, she got injured, and it kind of threw both of our summers up in the air. But of course, I'm here as needed of course. And I'm not going to let you guys down. We're going to deliver episode 67 and onward and upward. But with that, I want to let everyone know I am so grateful for all the new reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts and even on, the Podbean app, etc. It's been awesome and really warms the heart. So, like I say every week, if you have the time and are so inclined, please rate and review the Upful Life Podcast on Apple Podcasts or your platform of choice. It goes a long way to sending and steering those algorithms in this direction, bringing us new ears, new listeners, new souls, and that, my friends, is a beautiful thing. So, rate and review the pod. You can also reach out to me directly. Send me an email, b.getz@upfullife.com. That's b.getz@upfullife.com. I love to hear from the people. And I get sweet messages with suggestions and reflections and constructive criticisms and people trying to just get involved or have a dialogue. And I really appreciate everybody who listens, everybody who reaches out with a message. And I really, really give thanks to the people who donate and support what I do, whether it be this podcast, the Upful Life Podcast, or my writing work, Live for Live Music, or on upfullife.com, etc. If that's you, if you're like, hey, I'd like to support you, B, you can just cruise over to upfullife.com, click the support button, the top menu, and throw me a couple dollars for making you holler. I do appreciate when I get paid for doing the wild thing. And of course, you can just go into the show notes. There'll be a link there you can click as well. But obviously, I'll continue to put this podcast out free of charge for as long as I'm able to. And the response and energy and reciprocation has been absolutely wonderful, totally humbling. I just did the Jazz Fest down in New Orleans. It's my 19th year. It seemed like everywhere I went, somebody had kind words and dap and lifted up the Upful Life Podcast. And that really just is amazing battery in my back to keep at it, because this is not easy. It takes a lot of hours. It's just me. I'm a one-man gang. So it goes a long way when I get that love, when I get that energy, when people tell me they listened to this episode or that episode, and here's why they loved it. Man, can't put a price on that. It's fucking amazing. And the most recent episode was one of, if not the fastest rising metrically and downloads, etc., shares on social. Shout out Alana Rockland, Sound Tribe Sector 9. Been waiting a long time to talk to somebody from Sound Tribe, and it was beautiful to connect with Alana like we did, and the response to that pod was absolutely unbelievable. So this is my deep bow and gratitude to everybody who tuned in, but especially folks who got behind the Alana Rockland pod. And yeah, I got a lot of notes from people, more than usual, different things that they learned or liked or loved or appreciated. So Alana was an open book. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is just get the artists to tell their stories, to talk about their journeys, their heroes, their influences, and also their hardships and obstacles, and the methods and the pathway to which they overcame and moved forward. Because, it's not all rainbows and unicorns, as we know, and the music often tells the stories of the shit we go through and the experiences we have at live music, dancing, soaking in the songs, the relationships we have with the songbooks. It's all pretty deep stuff, and that's what I'm trying to do here at the Upful Life Podcast. And when I receive the reciprocal messages and the love, and people just stopping me in person, it's everything to me. So before we get into episode 67, I just wanted to throw that down and let y'all know I hear you, I appreciate you, I love you, thank you for listening. And if you're curious about how I got down at the Jazz Fest in New Orleans, look no further than upfullife.com or Live for Live Music, because my annual Jazz Fest wrap-up is out. And it's a passion project like none other. It's where it all began for me as a music journalist, really, was going to New Orleans Jazz Festival, going out all night, going to the fairgrounds, and then writing about it. And so much of what I do and what I've been fortunate to experience really can trace its roots back to New Orleans and the Jazz Fest. And this year, the article's called Betcha by Golly Wow. Shout out Gabrielle Cavassa. And it's detailed reviews of a dozen or so shows. Another 15 or so just have videos. But I just try to present a lot of favorites and something off the beaten path, and maybe not what you're going to get from some other sites or some other journalists. Really made it my own, and I'm very proud of this year's project. So, Betcha by Golly Wow. It has a big picture of the Nth Power with Ivan Neville and Tony Hall dressed as the Gap Band. That show was my unequivocally favorite show of 2023. I waited 3 years for it. It was supposed to be their annual Jazz Fest tribute in 2020. Pandemic put a pause on it. They had the good sense to hold it back in 2022. And when it hit, late night, first Friday night, Toulouse Theater, deep in the quarter, it was a motherfucker. Like, it's rare that you build up a show in your head and your heart for 1,000 days and nights dreaming of the dance floor, and then it exceeds those expectations. But that's what the fuck happened here, and I wrote about that. And I used that photograph as the header for a reason. But that's not to slight any of the other artists, not only that I covered, but that performed at the Jazz Fest across the board. I want to shout out Live for Live Music and GMP Live. They did beautiful things down there once again this year. Days Between Fest, Days Between Band, Days by Night, and then like a dozen other shows, including the Nth Power does the Gap Band. So it was an amazing, heart-filling, rewarding, inspiring, just an incredible Jazz Fest for number 19 for this guy. And as some of you may remember, last year's Jazz Fest was a bit of a struggle bus for your boy. Had to show up late and also got COVID, pulled the plug early. So I kind of was bitter and stewed about that for almost a calendar year. And boy, oh boy, did that pendulum swing back, and how. So please, if I just tickled your fancy in any way, or you had your own Jazz Fest and you'd like to compare notes or relive in some capacity, please stop by upfullife.com or Live for Live Music. I'll put the link in the show notes. And this is going to be a very New Orleans-focused Upful Life podcast. The next couple might even be, because I planted a lot of seeds down there, but one of them is coming to fruition right the fuck right now. So let's get into it. On episode 67 of the Upful Life Podcast, I'm your host, B. Getz. Yes, indeedy.
Everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah. Say yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Break it down for a minute. I want to hear the people singing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, just a little bit louder, please. Yeah. Sound good this evening, saying yeah. Just a little bit louder, please.
You play me like a fiddle ever since I met your ass. I can't even do a hey diddle. Hey, it's something in the past. You threw all your laundry on me. You took up my time. I don't know if you know what you did to my mind. I'm gonna spend some time on me. Heal my heart.
All right. Please welcome guitarist Ari Teitel to episode 67 of the Upful Life Podcast. Now, oftentimes I'll read the artist's bio going in, but we pretty much go through Ari's entire career from his childhood in such a way that it really makes no sense to read the artist bio in the intro. And maybe that's something I should consider all the time, but it seemed to really make a whole lot of sense this time. I also talked a bunch on the intro, so we should probably get right to the interview, and you'll learn all about Ari's life and career and journey in the next hour or so. But I will say this, I've had my eyes and ears on what's happening in New Orleans from afar, and a couple times a year in person, and this dude has made himself known and heard in humble ways, yet also clearly shining bright as I would say a future star, but I believe his time is now. So Ari's been jamming with a lot of my favorite cats for the better part of 5-6 years now, and anytime I see a fellow lawnsman out there doing big things, I almost innately get behind that individual and their endeavors. So this sort of happened organically. I got hip to his solo record. I was familiar with his work with Chawa. I knew he was starting a new band with the Rumble. So I was kind of interested in doing this already. But then when the situation presented itself kind of organically through New Orleans and Jazz Fest and mutual peeps, etc., it happened as it should. So when we tried to do it while I was down there in New Orleans, but the time is just too stretched thin while we're in the midst of Jazz Fest, and it's rare that you can really carve out the time to do down there. And instead of reading the bio, I'm going to play a couple minutes of the title track from Ari Teitel's solo album, I've Got My Thing, which I'm a huge fan of. It made my favorite albums of 2022, which you can read all about on upfullife.com. With that, let's listen to a little bit of Ari Teitel, I Got My Thing, and then we'll get into a conversation with the man himself on episode 67 of the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz. Yes, indeedy.
My friends, they've been good to me. They've had my back and gave me the key. My woman, she knows me so well. Been warning me, she knew what time would tell. I've started taking their good deeds, so I can tell you. You got your thing, you do. I got my thing too. This ain't no we thing. Working together is no fair thing. You got your thing, you do. I got my thing too. This ain't no we thing. Working together isn't always pretty.
Fresh off a couple weeks in the Crescent City, New Orleans for Jazz Fest 2023. It is an honor and privilege and pleasure to touch base with Ari Teitel, guitarist, holding things down in New Orleans. He's made a few minutes to speak with the Upful Life Podcast, and we are grateful. What's up, Ari?
Not too much, man. Grateful to be here.
Yeah, likewise, man. I know we try to connect while we're down there, but it's so busy for everybody, and any spare time people have, you want to sleep or eat or, play with your dog, whatever. So I think it's better that we took a week or so afterwards and got a chance to kind of regroup and then have a conversation, but it's still kind of fresh in our mind. A lot of people are kind of reliving the Jazz Fest glory. So I think it's kind of perfect, our timing. And that's where I want to start, man. Can you, for people less initiated who either don't go to Jazz Fest or don't have a thumb on the pulse of how it works, what is that 2 weeks like for you as a musician with regard to preparation and shedding all the different material, and also like the physiological, like keeping yourself healthy, rested, and focused for such when people are playing, upwards of 15, 20 gigs inside of 2 weeks? So give me the prep on the music and then give me the sort of sustenance and your routine to stay at your best.
Yeah, wow. The staying healthy thing, that's the toughest part. But no, starting with the music, I think because I live here, I'll play the fest a lot. Like I'll do maybe more fairgrounds gigs than people coming in from out of town to play. Because the bands that I just regularly play with will play at the fairgrounds. So, for example, like the church I play with, they play at the fairgrounds every year. I do that. I'll play with the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra. I play with this great Afro-Cuban percussionist Alexei Marti at the fest. And then of course with the Rumble. So that's just 4 groups that I already play with that I gotta brush up on the music for. And then there's all the kind of all-star gigs. So that we gotta prepare for. Luckily, this year wasn't too much learning of songs, and I kind of got ahead of it because I was actually on a tour with Ivan Neville the weekend before Jazz Fest. So I got back from that, and then immediately it was rehearsals. So yeah, so then I played with Ivan over Jazz Fest, and then I played with the Maple Leaf All Stars. I started doing that. I'll call it that half Jazz Fest. It was like canceled that year, but some of the late night stuff still went forward. So I started playing with the Maple Leaf All Stars, which is Ivan Neville, Tony Hall, Raymond Weber. One time Devin Trusclair did it, and then rotating cast of horn players. This year Carl Denson did it. But Scarrick and Ashlyn Parker have done a couple of them with us. So that's fun. And those guys will sometimes bust out songs that they don't get to play all the time. Like Ivan will sing some covers that he wouldn't necessarily do with Dumpster Funk. So I'll have to brush up on that. Or he might want to bust out one of his originals from the 80s that he doesn't really play out. And I remember last year, Tony sent me some music like a few hours before the gig, was like, yo, Ivan wants to play this tonight. So I was literally shedding up until like the hour before the gig. So yeah, the all-star gigs, sometimes it's like we'll come in with some agendas, but a lot of times we just kind of get together on what music we already know. I find common ground with that. Yeah, and then sleeping that's the tough part, because a lot of nights like I'd be done playing at 2, but I couldn't fall asleep till 5, and then I'd have to be up the next morning, like, you know, at 9 or 10. So yeah, this year's sleep was a struggle for me.
I bet, man. I bet. I saw you in a number of places at crazy hours, and I didn't even consider how much fairgrounds you did outside of like your own thing, the Rumble. And yeah, those early mornings for the fairgrounds gig on the back end of a late night. And I mean, yeah, you only touched off of a few, man. You did, there was the Stuff tribute, there was the fucking Zildjian gig, like. You had and I guess the Zildjian gig was kind of the New Orleans songbook, so not too much out of pocket that day, save for maybe a couple tunes. But it just the breadth and the scope of what you got to be prepared for on a night and even hour to hour basis is staggering, and it's so impressive and so ambitious. And when I see it, I don't know, call you young. You're younger than the guys you're referencing, a Tony, an Ivan, a Carl D. So you're playing with very seasoned cats that really, like, those guys right there kind of like created the Jazz Fest After Dark thing, the super jams, the all-star thing, the New Orleans funk songbook, where whatever the venue, it's like. And so for you to be drafted for something like that in so many combos, and then Ivan to take you on the road out of town, I think it speaks to what, the level that you're at as a player in that language, in that culture. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And the other side of it I really love is the fact that like you're a young cat, you're not from there. So like you obviously the cards are even more stacked against you from jump. So to earn it through your own work and through like getting drafted by the legends, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see, just to watch. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I watched that video of the Maple Leaf show with Tony and Ray and Ivan and Carl and you know, and it was like, damn, fucking getting it. So I appreciate you taking us kind of like behind the curtain. Besides sleep, what else like keeps you at your best to actually perform at this level?
Oh man, trying to lay off the alcohol, that's important. So I'll try not to like I won't have more than a drink or two. Because I don't, so I'm not hungover at all. Or what else? Try to eat healthy. Try to still like get exercise if possible.
People don't realize that's hard as fuck to do in that town, to sleep.
Oh, hard as fuck.
To eat right, you know, to like eat really nutritionally. It's not like there's a Whole Foods every 6 blocks like here in the Bay Area. Like it's hard to find super healthy food at those hours in that city. And then exercise. Where's the time? Like when are you going to get to the gym? When are you going to go for a run? You got
Right.
the gig. So it's impressive, man. And you, I don't say you necessarily make it look easy, but you all do it. Like it's a way of life, and it commands respect. But obviously that didn't happen overnight, right? So let's go back in the Wayback Machine. You weren't born and raised in New Orleans, so from Detroit area, as I understand it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back there. Like, how young were you when you first, you know, picked up a guitar or played music at all? And what are your like embryonic memories, whether it be a song or an album or a performance that kind of like sticks out in like young Ari's memory?
Let's see. All right, so I started playing piano when I was 4, and the teacher was very like strict classical. She was from Poland, and I didn't really vibe with that. You know, then around when I was like 7, 8, I think my dad started kind of exposing me to what he was into, which was like a lot of Allman Brothers, the band, the Dead, Dylan, you know, shit that Jewish dads like to listen to. Yeah, what else? I miss the band Allman Brothers, Dead. Oh, Hendrix. There was some like Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan in there. My mom liked singer-songwriter stuff. But I do remember when I was young, she had the Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell CD and the Jackson 5 like best of. So I was hearing like a bit of the Motown stuff, and then Stevie and Aretha. I'm like, so I don't know. Some of that Motown stuff, like the guitar changes, I don't know, it's kind of ingrained in me because I heard it young. Or like James Jamerson's bass playing, that just like always stuck out to me. But then maybe when I was like 8 or 9, my dad, he brought home a Derek Trucks Band CD. At the time, like Derek was fairly young too, so my dad was super hyped on him. He would always go see Derek when I was a kid, and I was too young to get into the shows normally. And then finally, once when I was like 15, I saw him at a all ages venue. But so anyway, so he was taking me to the shows. He'd take me to see the Allman Brothers when they'd come to town. Los Lobos. He took me to see like Humphreys when I was 12. So I had this love and appreciation for live music. But sorry if I'm jumping around a bit. But then when I was like 9, hearing the guitar work in the Allman Brothers made me want to make that switch from piano to guitar. So started playing guitar, and I was progressing pretty quickly. So my dad would take me to like blues bars in Detroit, to sit in, and I started meeting all those like the blues musicians in Detroit from like the time I was basically 10, 11. And then when I was 11, my dad took me to see Robert Randolph and the Family Band. And Robert would do this thing where he'd call out guitar players from the audience, like, hey, who knows how to play guitar? And my dad got everyone in the section to point at me. Robert called me up, and I sat in for like 20 minutes.
Bump it!
Give it up for little 11-year-old Ari from Detroit.
Like, first the guitar tech went to like take away the guitar after the tune, and Rob was like, no, keep him up. So played like 2 or 3 songs with them, and it was all on video. He picked me up and put me on a chair. Some people found out about the video, and wasn't like quite viral, but the people who ran a festival called Arts Beats and Eats in Detroit, which was fairly big, I'd equate it to like French Quarter Fest. Like, it was a lot of local talent, but they'd bring in some bigger acts, like you might have Santana or BB King or Buddy Guy. So the guy who ran that, I guess I got his attention, and they had me like sit in with a bunch of artists there. No one huge, but that was kind of my foray into playing professionally. Then there's this thing called Motown Winter Blast, which was their winter festival, and they asked me to put a band together. So I got my friend Amir to play drums, and he plays a lot of gospel now, but he works with I don't know if you've heard of Will Sessions, Detroit band.
Yeah, they remade Nas Illmatic instrumentally. I have this compact disc of it. Dude, amazing band. Carry on.
So Amir drums with Will Sessions, and also the accomplished keyboard player in the gospel world. So and we were the same age, grew up in the same place, and he was always kicking my ass musically. And he was raised in the church. Him and his mom would bring me to their church every now and then and expose me to that side of music. And he got into to Lettuce when we were like in high school. So, because he was like, this dude was 13 and bands were taking him out of town to do festival hits. He was playing with like jam bands and stuff. So he so he got into like watching Deitch play drums and turned me on to that thing. And so then we had a band together called the Jam Society, like till the end of high school. And then like on our first gig, dude Ian Finkelstein, who also he works with a lot of jazz and electronic artists, also Will Sessions too. But he's kind of who else did he play with? Esperanza Spalding. And he was kind of a virtuoso that was like 5 years older than me at the time. So yeah, so there was some kids around my age that were playing music at a high level, and then end of high school, I get into the Detroit Symphony Orchestra Civic Jazz Ensemble, and all the teachers in that were like real heavy jazz guys on the Detroit scene, and that really got me into that and made me want to go study jazz in college. So you'd have like the teachers, and then they'd had mentors that were college students at University of Michigan, Michigan State, and Wayne State. And I ended up going to Michigan State, where the faculty was like really heavy bebop guys. So you had Rodney Whitaker, who was in the Roy Hargrove Quintet, and Jazz at Lincoln Center with Wynton Marsalis. Played with everyone. He was in the Terrence Blanchard, Donald Harrison Quintet. So he was the director, and he was a big mentor to me. First guitar professor they had was Perry Hughes, who played with like Bob James and Ronnie Laws, and was friends with George Benson, like one of the baddest guitar players. So I kind of came up under him, and then Randy Napoleon was the next guitar teacher. Etienne Charles, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was on the faculty. His awesome like world music with world jazz type stuff. He's from Trinidad, badass trumpet player and composer. So I studied arranging and composition with him. So yeah, I had some really awesome teachers. But then while I was in college, I was going down to Detroit to gig with like heavy blues and funk people in the city. So I started playing with like going into my senior year of college, I was gigging with Thornetta Davis, who Thorne's like the heavy Detroit singer. It was like if I like when I was around town, if I just said, oh, I play with Thornetta, they're like, all right, you're in. Like you know, they like that was the kind of like, oh, now they know I can somewhat play. So I was playing with Thornetta. She just got won a Blues Music Award for Best Soul Blues Vocalist. But she had sang backup with like on Kid Rock albums, and like with Bob Seger, and she's just a badass. So I played in her band, and that band, it required you to play like some jazzy material. She'd go all the way to like Prince, Aretha, and then you're playing like different eras of blues. You're playing like Bessie Smith, you're playing B.B. King, and even like Janis Joplin. Like she liked to sing everything.
You know you got it if it makes you feel good. Oh yes, indeed. Well, you're out on the streets looking good, baby, and you know that just ain't right. You know that ain't right. Never hear me when I cry late at night. And honey, I cry all the time. Each time I tell my
and I guess I had experience playing a lot of styles of music. So like the versatility was like that was kind of ingrained in me pretty early on. Let's see, Larry McCray, I started working with him, and he's also kind of like a mentor on guitar. He's one of the baddest blues rock guitar players like ever. If y'all don't know about Larry McCray, yeah, better look him up. He was the first person to record Soulshine. Warren Haynes wrote Soulshine. Larry recorded it first.
Just like my papa used to say, he used to say the sunshine is better than sunshine, it's better than moonshine, damn sure better than the rain, yes it is. The people don't mind, we all feel this way sometimes, so let your soul shine on to the break of day. I grew up thinking that I had it made.
Yeah, this is all like schooling us. So I just want to interject with, I appreciate the brick by brick, because I'm going to lay some examples in between as you go there. So feel free to dig as deep as needed to lay the path. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So like Larry and Thornetta, like to this day, very, very heavy. If you talk to real blues people, connoisseurs, they will know those names. So yeah, playing with Thornetta definitely got me some cred around Detroit. I would work with this drummer RJ Spangler, and he'd put me in all sorts of bands. He would lead like a blues band, do like a jazz organ trio thing, and then a nonette doing like swing music. And he'd have me playing like jump blues. So I was getting exposed to all these different, like really specific musical styles. And this is all when I'm in college, like going back and forth to Detroit to gig. And then I would say most importantly, I started playing with Skeeto Valdez, who was he was a drummer in the Trey Anastasio band.
I remember.
Yeah. So Skeeto's like Detroit stalwart. Like you need a badass drummer, you call Skeeto.
Yeah, it was like right before Ray Weber, Skeeto had he was in that window of Trey band. I do remember, but I don't have a great frame of reference. I think I saw 2 shows with Skeeto. So that's so cool that he comes into the mix, because he's sort of been like a cat we've always wondered about. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to tell us more about Skeeto. People have long been curious where he came from and whatever came of him.
Oh yeah, so Skeeto, I know before Trey, he was in this kind of indie rock band with a cult following called King Conga. And they had Rick Beato producing them, and Rick was producing Trey. Trey was trying out all these drummers that weren't working out, and Rick was like, "Hey, I'm working with this guy in another band. I think you'll dig him." So Trey heard him and was like, "Yeah, cool." So Skeeto was like fairly old when he got that gig, but like in Detroit, kind of a musical legend. In the sense that like you go to Skeeto's gigs, that's the musicians are going to be there. Like, you know, like seeing Skeeto in Detroit would be like seeing like Russell Batiste in New Orleans. Like you're just like people are showing up to see that. So I started playing with Skeeto like on gigs here and there when I was like 19, but then my junior year of college, he started putting me on his own gigs. And we would play like groove shit, jazz, funk stuff, rock, blues, everything. The bass player on those gigs was Paul Randolph, who played with Jazzanova, and he's now with Mark Farner, worked with Alice Cooper. Dude can sing his ass off and is one of the funkiest bass players. And Paul played bass on both of my albums. Dope musician, and then has like his own house career, like he does. So a lot of house music, heavy. So these are like heavy Detroit guys that I'm starting to play with when I'm 20. And then by playing with them, that's like the musicians are coming to those gigs. I would say I was like getting my legitimacy in Detroit when I was like 20, 21. And then I graduated college and moved to New Orleans.
Okay, give me your graduation year just for frame of reference.
College.
College.
2016.
Okay, copy that. Word. Well, dude, first of all, that's an amazing multi-hued path from, piano as a kid. And there were so many parallels in the early part of your story. I started playing with a very strict classical piano teacher. I didn't switch to guitar, so I played strict classical for like a decade, and then I got to see Jerry when I was young, and then all of a sudden I wanted to jam, and I played music for a while, but it's very similar to yours in that I was very drawn to the sort of like Dead, Almonds stuff first, and that sort of like opened up all the whole new worlds, and I just, not as so much as a musician, but just as like a young Jewish kid, the parallels, the doors of perception that we traveled through were very similar, and inevitably landed us in the same music community. But what I really enjoyed, I enjoyed your whole journey, and especially talking about, I'd read about the Robert Randolph thing. Was Shmeen's a guitar player in the family band at that time?
He was, yeah.
Oh, dude, that is so cool. So many, and then Amir and Will Sessions. I'll never forget my boy Edo out here in the Bay who hit me he's like, yo, this band is like remaking Illmatic, which is like one of the greatest rap albums of all time. So it's a ballsy thing to do, and that's how I got hip to Will Sessions, and to think that Amir from that band was an early player and connection for you and your journey. And when we talked Detroit, I just did a whole pod with a lot of Detroit because of the Dilla book. I had the author Dan Charnas of Dilla Time on the pod.
Yeah, awesome book.
Yeah, incredible, and so much Detroit in there. So it's such a the depth from Motown up through electronic, and now you're taking us to the blues and the jazz and the funk roots, and just black music in general is such an important city for that. And it kind of doesn't get quite the attention that some of the other music cities in this country do for black music and music in general. So the fact that you were schooled and taken under the wing of these folks, these pivot, and then you get to Michigan State and you have these like esteemed teachers in world music and jazz and composition and arrangement, and like all these bricks that you're building as a musician and as like a seeker. It's just impressive and almost cosmic, the alignment. And when you mentioned Jazzanova, it's like, holy fuck, man, I love Jazzanova. I have for so long. I would have never figured that anybody involved in that picture had a role in your journey and your come up, minor or not. Just speaks to the sort of symbiotic nature of the community of musicians and wherever.
Oh man, no, it was definitely an honor, and I think like Detroit it's such an underground scene that it doesn't get the attention you deserve. Like, you didn't know where Skeeto's been. Man, he's still out there gigging all the time. Yeah, kind of a lot of people came through his band and went through the school of Skeeto. And that was kind of mutual connection to Tony Hall, because they were
Right.
in the Trey band together. So things kind of came full circle. I play with Tony a lot, and I got a lot of my musical opportunities down here came from, or just in general kind of came from Tony.
And did Tony and you connect by way of you playing with Skeeto back up in the D?
No, this is a funny story, actually. So I came down, I met Tony and told him, yeah, play with your boy Skeeto. And he was like, all right, cool. Then one day Tony was playing at the Leaf, and this was when Andrew Block was playing in his band. So Block invited me up to sit in, and I played. And Tony, so we get off stage, and Tony said, man, he said, you told me you could play. He said, you told me you played. He said, why didn't you tell me that you could play like that? And I don't like speaking about, myself like that, obviously. But, and then he started, calling me for all his gigs, and, getting introduced to people in his sphere. He got me with the Maple Leaf All-Stars thing, got me, playing with like people like Ivan Neville more. He would, show me some things on guitar, because he's a badass guitar player too. So yeah, so I kind of like came through the like a lot of other young guitarists in New Orleans go through that the Tony school, or a lot of musicians in general.
Definitely. Drummers too. Yep.
Yeah, those guys they'll put you through the ringer, with love, of course, but because they want you to succeed.
Everybody ready? Going to the levee, going to see the Zulu queen. Shake a little booty, smoke a little Muda, eat a plate of red beans. Welcome, welcome, welcome to New Orleans. Welcome, welcome, welcome to New Orleans.
But yeah, guys like who are closer to my age, like Devin Trusclair and Alvin Ford, they definitely went through the school of dumpster.
Oh yeah, and Yano's pretty young, and he plays with Tony.
Yeah, Yano's another guy who we kind of have similar musical paths, and a lot of the same gigs. It was
yeah, you guys have good chemistry. I noticed that with the Stuff gig and the Tony stuff, and I just seen you on stage a bunch together. In this
no, we just got hours of playing together. So we would play in we played in Eric Bloom's band together too.
Sonic Bloom, right?
So so we were kind of like in the tail end of Sonic Bloom, and then when it became Benny and the Late Bloomers,
right,
then it was like we were the band was officially me, Eric Vogel, Brad Walker, Yano, and then AJ Hall, sometimes Alvin Ford or Alfred Jordan. So that was kind of like the end of Bloom living in New Orleans, and then he'd come back, and we'd do some gigs here and there. especially coming out of the pandemic, there are a lot of kind of pop-up shows where it might be like me, Nigel, Kevin Scott when he was living here, and like, insert badass drummer,
One of the things I'm really trying to do is shine a light on the next generation of cats that we're talking about here, the people that you play with, the people that this new wave. And I think it was pretty ballsy for you to leave, the cozy confines of Detroit, musically speaking. You're playing with all the cats, right? And you went to the Mecca, you went to New Orleans, and you set up shop down there after college. So we've talked a little bit about your community down there, but how about the decision? Like, was it an easy decision? Did you agonize over it? Did you struggle at first when you landed down there? Just take me through the I'm moving to New Orleans chapter.
Yeah, Detroit, I felt like I felt like I had gotten all the gigs that I could get in Detroit. And I think at the time, Detroit, mind you, took a lot longer than the rest of the country to kind of get out of the recession. It's like the recession, I would say, started earlier in Detroit. Like with, layoffs and you'd see going out of business signs, like all this was like before 08 or 07. That was because the manufacturing industry was just in decline there, and it took longer for it to rebound. And I think 2016, it still hadn't, like, the money wasn't flowing in the city like it is now, where I think now there's kind of more young people moving to the cities. Like, it's kind of, unfortunately been kind of gentrified. But if there's a positive to that, there's that music's kind of flourishing a little more now. I'm seeing more young musicians, especially like people doing this kind of jazz, hip hop, R&B, EDM fusion. Like just young Black creatives crushing it. So yeah, that wasn't really happening yet when I was. That's like, I feel like the scene has just kind of started getting back together in the last few years. So I needed a fertile scene to be a part, like, because I wanted to make a living playing music live. And LA, I didn't. It was an expensive city. New York, I didn't really feel like was my vibe, nor was Nashville. And I felt like with the kind of my musical inclinations that New Orleans was kind of the spot, because I like to play jazz, I like to play funk, R&B, soul, and I was able to play like everything. I moved down, so I would even get to play some more like dead stuff with Papa Molly, or played with like Herlin Riley a little bit, doing more like jazz kind of stuff. And I don't really think I could do that in another city. Also, like all these musicians that we're talking about, they're people I look up to. So yeah, I think it just made a lot of sense to move to New Orleans. And I kind of got down at a time where some people like Danny Abel, shortly after I moved down, he started playing with Tank of the Bangos, or Raja would be out with Antibalas. Block was playing with Russ Liquid. So I started kind of getting the calls that they were getting, like playing in Bloom's band, playing with Tony, or playing with the Treme Funktet, Erica Falls, like people like that. I would play a lot with or not a lot, but when the band happens, Terrence Higgins' band, he's also another guy that kind of helped introduce me to people and put me on some gigs.
I fucking love Grease as a player. Like, love Grease. I feel like he needs to be mentioned with the Cats. So big up,
Oh
Terrence.
no, he absolutely is, and he's yeah, no, and he's definitely gotten some like huge gigs as of late, like doing the big Willie Nelson 90th birthday thing at Hollywood Bowl. But yeah, he's another guy that was like real generous to me, and he he called me for like one of my first big kind of jazz fest late night shows. Same with Eric Bloom, and these were guys that also like turned me on to different music, um, and stuff like exposed me to different stuff.
And again, it just speaks to the depth and breadth of what you bring to the table, that you can get all those calls for those cats that were out, and kind of create your own mythos and mystique in that city. And as your peers are out doing other stuff, you had fortuitous timing, great relationships, obviously the music, the talent, the ingenuity, the style, the taste, and you're humble. You said it, you're not telling people how good you are. You just show up to the gig and then they find out. And word travels. And I think that, I remember when Dice first was super hype on you, and he's like my North Star. So that's the ultimate cosign. And he's always, just saw you sit in with the quartet the other night at the end of Fest on Sunday at the Nile. It's not just the New Orleans Cats thinking of you that way. The national Cats, some full circle shit. You found Lettuce when you were kind of just getting down, and now you're one of very few guests to grace Adam's stage that night. And Benny, I mean, dude, Benny is probably one of the greatest soloists I've ever heard. Just the way he puts together thoughts and phrasings and ideas is unbelievable. And he's, for him to be that high on you, also speaks volumes to me and a lot of my listeners. But let's talk about I Got My Thing, because we're talking about you playing a bunch of gigs with other cats, right? Like,
Yeah,
their gigs, or you're a sideman, or you're a Super Jam All-Star, etc. But this is literally called I Got My Thing.
yeah, that's kind of like what I guess the ethos behind that was like. I'm playing with all these other people. Like, do people really know my musical voice? I had been playing with Chawa for a while, and I made this album kind of on right after I quit Chawa, so that informed some of the music. And then yeah, I was playing, I think people around town kind of know me as like more of a funk guitar player. Um, but I wanted to bring kind of a R&B singer-songwriter vibe, because that's I'm into that a lot, and that music is really special to me, really resonates with me. Actually, one of the albums that informed that, I'm wearing the T-shirt for Marvin Gaye, I Want You. So I was mining that music, like Marvin Gaye, Leon Ware, Bobby Womack, like mid 70s soul, Philly soul stuff. And then also, like, I love 90s R&B, you know, D'Angelo, Maxwell, Badu. I named my dog Badu, so definitely into that. Yeah, and then like I kind of wanted almost like a hip hop thing happening with the drums, like a la what D'Angelo was doing, kind of.
How do you maintain your cool? Seems your love breaks all the rules. You may think it all know, but I could never seem to keep my control. How can you stand a chance to get so slow? Ooh, look at you. You're so smooth. When I'm around you, I can't keep my cool. Check it out. Look at you. You're so smooth.
Taking some of the elements of the 60s and 70s and putting them with that the boom bap drums, and then I wanted to kind of take that and bring it up to date. So that's pretty much what I got my thing encapsulates. And I used Jameson Ross played drums on most of the album, and Jameson, also another guy who's kind of been a mentor to me, a big brother. And I toured with Jameson's band in Europe, like a little before the pandemic. So got to learn a lot from him, and he's just really deep dude, really wise beyond his years. So he's someone I've learned a lot from. I had Paul Randolph back from Detroit. He came in, played bass on most of the record, and then Nigel played keys on most of the record. And Nigel also, learned a lot from hanging and playing with him. Who else? Kendrick Marshall played organ on one song. He plays with Big Sam's Funky Nation, but he's kind of like a legend in the church scene down here. Really one of my favorite keyboard players. Simon Lott played drums on a track.
I love him. Simon Lott is awesome.
Simon is freaking awesome. One of my favorite drummers. Yeah, so Simon played on a track. One song I played all the instruments, and then on the title track I played keys myself.
You played me like a fiddle ever since I met your ass. Can't even do a hey diddle. Hey, it's something the past. You threw all your laundry on me. You took up my time. I don't know if you know what you did to my mind. I'm gonna spend some time on me. Heal my heart.
Who else played out? John Michael Bradford, who's been playing with Dumpster Funk lately. He's one of the he's a little younger than me. I started playing with him when I moved here. He was still at Berkeley, but he was home for the summer, and he's out there crushing it, playing with everybody. Just a phenomenal musician.
Hey, his own band is great too. JMB's band.
Yep, and I play with them sometimes.
Oh, word. Yeah, I just listened to the single the other day. It's great.
Yeah. Yep. He does some awesome stuff.
He played my wedding. He was in my wedding band. That's one of the horns. Yeah, Ashlyn, Alex, and John Michael Bradford.
Yeah. Okay, so they were playing with Dumpster.
Yeah. Well, I just said, Nikki, bring a band, make it cool, and that was the horns. I was so grateful. Yeah, they were badass.
So
that's a hell of a band for your debut record.
Well, so I actually put out an album before that when I was finishing college. So I recorded my senior year of college with Skeeto, Paul Randolph, and then Phil Hale, who's a Detroit guy, played keys on it. But I needed to make something that reflected, you know, all the growth I had since then, because I've changed a lot since, as both a person, and went through a lot that, had to be reflected in the music.
We're in it to win it, we're in it together. We're playing for the dream team. It might take a minute to win our key. Victory ain't easy.
You talk about going through stuff and it being reflected in the record, and I thought maybe we could connect some dots here, because a lot of stuff was written about Chawa when you were in that band and you were the musical director and you were Grammy nominated. There was a lot of momentum. I can remember seeing y'all perform at like the Crawfish Fest, I want to say one of the early years, and at the fairgrounds, and seeing you guys take it around the country and around the world, and that was something you had a major hand in. It wasn't a sideman thing. I mean, you listed as musical director, and it was something that appeared to be a major priority for you. And then you left that band, as you mentioned, and you put a lot of the energy and feelings and emotions and experiences through that whole journey, the rise, fall, split, into I Got My Thing. But then you also got another thing in the Rumble. So I think folks, fans, no, but I'm not a drama pod. Like I told you, it's not gotcha journalism. I'm not here to say he said, she said. But at the same time, when you see somebody walk away from something so successful, what appeared to be from the outside looking in abruptly, or people are curious. And now we see you doing something in the same vein with some new faces. And you got a solo album in between. So yeah, take me through that roller coaster, as much or as little as you want to share about all that shit.
Yeah, I guess I left that out. I started playing with Chawa like 3 months after I moved to New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans August 2016. I was playing with Chawa starting November of that year. At that time, Raja had been playing guitar with them, and he started fading out to do other stuff. So I started playing with them. The trumpet player in the Rumble, Aurelian Barnes, he recommended me. He went to Tulane, and I had been friends with his roommate from Detroit, Aaron Cohen, and I was playing with Aaron a bit too when I first moved to New Orleans. So Aurelian brought me into into Chawa. And we were, at first, it was like a lot of weekend runs to the Carolinas or Texas. We do like Antone's and Continental Club. And then the band just somehow kept getting bigger, and it was kind of, I guess I would say I don't think the band leader was prepared for all this success that was starting to build up. So we had gotten a Jameson sponsorship that was kind of big. Then we did some showcases where, like, world music showcases in New York and Montreal, where we were like highly acclaimed, and Rolling Stone wrote about us. And this prompted like agents to start going after us and booking us on, like, we played Montreal Jazz Fest. Like, we headlined the main stage one night in front of like 20,000 people. It was pretty crazy. And this was like this is right after the Grammy nomination.
So I imagine this is taking up like all your time at this point. It is completely
A
consuming.
significant amount. Yeah. So I started as a musical director, I want to say winter 2018 when we did a tour with Dirty Dozen Brass Band. It was clear like there needed to be more leadership in the band, and I became that guy. So I was arranging a lot of the music, putting the show together, putting the set list together, and then eventually I'm hiring the musicians. So I brought in Yano into the band. Then Aurelian, who wasn't playing with us at the time, we needed to kind of expand the horn section. I brought him back in. Then we had sousaphone. Then we were transitioning to use bass guitar instead of sousaphone because we were kind of getting away from like a brass band vibe to a more funk thing. I brought TJ Norris in, who's a bass player in the Rumble, who was actually the trombone player in Dirty Dozen Brass Band, like multi-talented guy, badass singer. So I brought TJ in, but also Isaac Eady, who plays drums with Tedeschi Trucks, actually played bass on most of the My People album.
This next song, y'all, we got is written by my man Aurelian Barnes over here on the trumpet, and my man Andrew Nowski over on the keys, y'all. It's entitled My People, which is the title track for the up-and-coming Chawa album, y'all.
Rich people living in paradise. Poor people.
So I kind of brought all these people into the fold, and then so we got the Grammy nomination for Spy Boy. That was only Jose, the trombone player, and I were on that. But then we did My People, and by that time I had a much larger role in the band. I was writing songs. I was in Yano and Aurelian and the singers Jawan Boudreaux and Joseph Boudreaux were doing a lot of the writing too. But I was essentially steering the ship. I was the point person talking to all the guys while Joe was be dealing with some others, so like some personal stuff or what have you. So I kind of became the shoulder to cry on, if you will, because I was also co-producing My People with Andrew Block, and all the scheduling and that kind of thing, and you know, going between the band leader and band members, that was all me. And that was a super stressful time in my life. That was before the pandemic, but dealing with essentially steering the ship, that took its toll on me. And I kind of got, I won't get into that, but it was emotionally really tough. So then 2021 we toured the record. Joe went home from the tour, the band leader / drummer, to deal with some personal family things. And then Trenton O'Neill, who's the drummer in the Rumble, he came, played the rest of the tour, and it went from being one of the toughest tours to being the most like fun tour ever. And we were just fucking killing it every night. This was in so we played Durango, Colorado, we did like a 45-minute encore because the crowd literally didn't let us leave the stage. Like, we did first encore, we got off, and the crowd just stood there waiting for us to play more. We're like, all right, I guess we're playing more, and we're having like the time of our life. So that was kind of, I would say that was really the moment where we're like, all right, we need to play this music our way. We're all really good friends here, and this dynamic we have with each other. So Trent, the drummer we brought in, was like our age, came up in like the same camps as the trumpet player. Him and Yano would play together all through college. Me, him, and the bass player had a band that get together. All this chemistry was happening, and we get home from the tour. We played a couple final gigs as Chawa with Joe moved the percussion, Trent played drums, and then when Joe was kind of itching to get back behind the kit, we kind of said, well, we want to move forward with Trent and start our own band. Not only that, but also with Chawa, there was no Mardi Gras Indian ownership of the band. So it's like these guys are creating the culture that we're selling out on the road, but they have no ownership. Like the Black New Orleanians, there was literally no Black ownership, and this is like quintessentially Black New Orleans indigenous music. So the Rumble are like, we need to make a majority Black owned band where the culture bearers have decision making power. So they were essentially like powerless with Chawa. It was like, if you read stories about Chawa, the emphasis was never on like the Black masking culture. It was on like how Joe started the band. So we needed to flip the script and do things our way. So all 7 of us, besides Joe, started the Rumble, which was like really a leap of faith, because people told us, we had to start from scratch and stuff. Yeah, it's been a little over a year. We're doing a full tour. We're hitting like Telluride, Blues and Brews. We're dropping May 19th to putting our live record made at the Maple Leaf out. We're getting press, doing all this stuff that we thought was impossible. We got booking and management. And really built this, like, what I think is a special group.
I love it, man. I appreciate you taking it there. There's a lot to unpack. It's chemistry with the players, it's intention, it's responsibility. It is, doing the quote right thing. It's the level of stress. I mean, there were so many factors, but it felt really organic when you told the story, in terms of the chemistry of the band and making a collective decision, and the fact that it was a principled stand for Black masking culture and ownership, because we can't beat around the bush. The Indian aspect of both Chawa and the Rumble is visually and energetically the focus and the foundation, and what makes y'all different from the average funk band coming from that city. So Talk to me about the ownership.
So that's the thing, is a collective. We all have equal ownership.
And it's majority black.
No, me and Yano we're the token Jews, and but we only make up not even a third of the band. So
man, that's a portrait of a better tomorrow, man, with all this shit that's being the culture wars and the bullshit and everything that's going on, for y'all to, from the ashes of something that felt unfair or not in alignment, as the New Agers say out here, with reference to Chawa, it was not in alignment with your chemistry and your ideals, to find something, create something, and then, stand behind it.
I see you walking around town with a big old crown. You think you look pretty. What's in your spot, boy? It's about to go down, 'cause this my city. See, I'm an uptown ruler, and I'm gonna bring it to you here. The big sheep walking down the street, can't hide from me. Come to take my golden crown. I come to take my golden crown. I come to take my golden crown. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I come to take my golden crown.
Everyone's a bad motherfucker in the band and has a lot to offer. And then on the business end, we all split up the responsibilities. So some people might be on the merch side, some people handling social media. I'll work more in contact with me and TJ with the booking. TJ handles advancing shows and tech stuff. Everyone's really stepped up to the plate, and in this band, the current situation, I don't really need to be the musical director, because everyone can kind of handle their own station. I couldn't say the same thing about Chawa.
That takes the pressure off you, as the sort of
absolutely.
You're not a traffic cop anymore. You're not responsible for everybody's emotional baggage, communication. There's a lot comes off your shoulders that allows you to be better at what you do. And I know you got sound check coming up, and we went over an hour, but I do think this is a good place to land this ship. I don't want to keep you from getting where you need to be. And also, we left enough on the table that we can come back and do this again in a year or 18 months and see what's up. But I always finish up with where should people look for all things Ari Teitel, and what is the next thing you got happening that you want to tell people about?
Let's see. So the Rumble Live album, that's out. By the time this comes out, this album will be on all platforms. My album still is under a year old. You can check that out. Ari Teitel, Spotify. AriTeitelmusic.com is my website. I don't do the best job updating that, but Instagram is always good place to get in touch with me and see what I'm doing. Follow the Rumble, the Get Together, another project I have. Hopefully we'll be putting out some new stuff. Let's see. I just played on a song for PJ Morton that I've heard is coming out on the Twinkie Clark album.
Y'all make some noise for Twinkie Clark!
Which should be pretty badass. We did one of her songs. Or it's like some Twinkie Clark tribute, I think, coming out on Sony. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that came out. Let's see what else. The Rumble studio album that's gonna come out eventually. But we're touring really hard this summer, so we're doing June and July on our own, and then August we're teaming up with Tab Benoit to do a tour. and that's gonna end at Telluride Blues and Brews. We're hitting Shikori Hills in North Carolina, that awesome festival, and Moonshiners Ball. That's like Galactic and Neil Francis are doing that. Yeah, so we're basically traveling up till the new. We have stuff booked all the way through March 2024. So we pretty much are playing consistently. I'm not gonna have very many breaks, and I'm getting married in February 2024. So it's gonna be a pretty freaking crazy year.
Yeah. Mazel. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just got married myself, as I mentioned. I realized you put
Mazel.
the record out. You put the record out the day before I got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got married on 11/11, and I realized you put out the album right before that, but it still snuck into my best of the year. I'm going to put all those links, your Instagram, the Spotify, the Rumble, and the album, all in the show notes so people can get hip to what you're up to. And anytime we can help when you're putting out the studio album, holler. We'll get some words up about it. I'll always play some songs and shit. So, yeah, you're going to be like the Jazz Fest pod episode coming up next. So,
oh man, beautiful.
Representing on behalf of that great city.
Dude, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And I will send you a link to the Rumble Live record. It comes out tomorrow, so you'll get a little bit of an advanced listen.
Hey! I said I wasn't gonna prove it, but you're coming in hot, so I switched the plan. I said I wasn't gonna use it, but I got a little secret that they wish they had. Say, I'm an Indian ruler. I see Jockey Bofino, we bust that ass.
Hear the rumble. Hear the rumble, yeah, yeah.
Run for them life. When I step into the jungle, say they wanna group up. They better move up, never gonna win a Royal Rumble.
In this life, need more love. In this life, need more love. In this life, due to the news, our minds are being used for destruction.
I want to say thank you to my man Ari Teitel for that illuminating conversation and getting to know him just a bit better, getting to know his career, his journey. Future is clearly bright for my man. So give thanks for the time and the energy spent chatting with us. And I couldn't resist with the rumble and dropping the Skrillex and Fred again, John. Just a guilty pleasure. But now slid into a little bit of In This Life, a funky New Orleans style tune from Ari's most recent LP, I Got My Thing. We heard a little bit of the title track during the interview. I really love the title track. I really love this song, and the whole record hits. It's one of my favorite records of the year 2022. And I'm going to do the Vibe Junkie Jam right now, even though we got a segment coming up afterwards. Keeping with the NOLA flow. I've been waiting so long for that Nth Power show, doing the Gap Band, that I'm going to play Burn Rubber from the performance. Thanks to Randy for the tape, the soundboard matrix. I've got the whole show. If you want to hit me up on the email, I'll slide you a link to listen to the whole gig. But for the Vibe Junkie Jam, like we usually do at the end of the podcast, we're going to play it right now. Keep those Crescent City vibes flowing. This is the Nth Power with members of Dumpster Funk and more friends from all over. Cliff Porter on percussion and vocals, Amy Bellamy on keys, and a 5-piece horn section, elite horn section, led by Alex Vasili and Ashlyn Parker from Dumpster Funk, among others. You can check out all the players, all the stats, all the deets. If you want to check out my article on Live for Live Music or upfullife.com, it's called Betcha by Golly Wow. And it's about Jazz Fest 2023. So we're going to play you this version of Burn Rubber, Gap Band classic from the Nth Power and Friends from Toulouse Theater. This probably took place around 3:30 in the morning on first Friday at Jazz Fest 2023. And then after the Vibe Junkie Jam, we're going to do an old school segment with me and one of my oldest, dearest friends, J.A., talking about Summer Tour. But first, some funk. Just want to drop in and say thank you and a deep bow to my man, Randy Bears, my trusted attorney, and Funk It blog. It's my go-to, my right-hand man, and he's responsible for all this amazing footage from Jazz Fest 2023 and this tape and video of the Nth Power doing the Gap Band. Thanks, Randy.
Is this Phoenix, Arizona? Is this Tulsa, Oklahoma? Is it? Is it? Is it? Louisiana. Is this the one that's Louisiana? Is this the one that's Louisiana? Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah.
All right. Well, since this pod came in a little bit later than normal, and of course, since I'm back on the East Coast, I figured why not get together with the homie J.A., my man Jason Abrams, one of my hometown homies, one of my oldest friends, and indirectly responsible for inspiring me to have a podcast like 20 years ago, more than that, 25 years ago, geez, when he had a talk radio show at Camden County College called The Jason Abrams Show, of which I still have 2 cassette tapes, which I discovered not that long ago, and they're unlistenable. I sound like a jackass, but Jason's pretty funny then and now. So nonetheless, traveled back east for my mom's health situation and cruised over to my man J.A.'s crib in Philly. And we decided that we would do a summer tour, summer concert preview, which we did once, I think 3 years ago, the summer of 2019. We definitely did a summer tour preview once before. I want to say it was 2019. Obviously, not much was happening in 20 and 21, but so we haven't really done this for a while. He came on the pod 2 or 3 times in the early days, and it's been a few years. So without any further ado, my man J.A., who I met in the press box at Kiss concert 1990 Hot in the Shade tour. Both of our dads had some kind of connections to get us tickets. They were in the press box. I recognized him from elementary school, but he was a grade older than me. Nonetheless, we crewed up and we've been thick as thieves ever since. So as a sort of a bonus, a special treat for my old school listeners, for my friends, for my homies from back in the day, and of course anybody who's curious what we have to say about some summer concert tours. We touch on some Taylor Swift, Dead and Company, a little Motley Crue detour due to the McMars situation, and then a few others to boot. So please enjoy me and J.A. talking Summer Tour 2023 to wrap up episode 67 of the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz. Yes, indeedy. Back in the home turf, Philadelphia's illest. I'm here with my man J.A. Welcome back to the Upful Life Pod.
Oh, it's my favorite podcast of the year. I love it every year when you call me. I mean, I'm not to brag, but I do like maybe 2 other podcasts. And but when you call me, I always know it's going to be fun because we're going to talk about fun stuff. And this is my favorite topic, summer tours. Nothing gets me more excited than the summer tour season.
I know. You're always, it's kind of like draft for like NFL junkies where you get really into it. And you know what? It used to be more of like a coverage of like there would be like full magazine features dedicated just to previewing. But in the internet era, it's not as focused. So like everyone's got their best of list. But we're here in Philly. Unfortunately, I'm here in Philly not for the best reasons. My mom's having some health issues, but we were going to do this on Zoom. So now we get to do it right here in your palatial estate, surrounded by, I'd say, like 60% music, rock and roll memorabilia, 40% wrestling memorabilia. And before I press record, we spent a good amount of time talking about wrestling. And, you know, man, it's crazy because I'm listening to this pod about Vincent K. McMahon. But so much of our childhood is wrapped up into the storylines of wrestling. And even today, like, we just saw this whole, like, global geopolitical thing with Syria and Saudi Arabia, like real world shit play out with like one wrestler's journey. And I thought that it was a statement on the fact that wrestling still helps people understand the world, even now.
Yeah, so they'll be in Saudi Arabia tomorrow, like, which is kind of like a taboo thing. Saudi Arabia tries to get a lot of Western entertainment.
too, right?
Bieber's been over there. They DJs. They do a lot of big shows. But when they first started going over there almost a decade ago, like women weren't allowed to wrestle. Now women can wrestle in Saudi Arabia. Like and there's been a lot of things too, like with the outside the wrestling world that has happened with women in Saudi Arabia, like driving this and that, and they attest that to some of the Western culture that comes over and like, I'm not trying to say anything
positive or negative.
Yeah.
It's both, because it's positive because there's people making strides now, like this guy Sami Zayn, who's a Syrian guy, could have never gone to the Mecca and worshipped as a Muslim. It's a beautiful thing, but the reason he's able to go is because of money.
100%.
So that kind of sucks, because it's not driven by like ideals. It's like, oh, we can make more money if we let these people in, and we change our rules to accommodate this Western sport.
If there's one
sports
thing,
entertainment.
If there's one thing we can get out of their greed, is maybe a little drip down to the people to have more opportunities, then that's a good thing.
Certainly, and I just thought it was ironic that we were talking about how the communists, Nikita Koloff and Nikolai Volkov, and how it was like, that's how we understood the world, was through like wrestling characters. And then right today, the same shit is happening, but it's the kayfabe's down. It's like now it's real.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool and also intense and kind of shitty at the same time. But
everyone puts on their pants and lives the life, and they got to go work. And some people have these like global jobs that, are just, there's nothing they can do about it. You have to sometimes go, for lack of a better word, go do the job somewhere.
Right. And honestly, if we're being real, like, not everyone puts on pants anymore. And some people put on, like, singlets if we're wrestling. This is one of my oldest, dearest friends, so we get off track and laugh about old shit. But we met, for those of you who don't remember, he's been on the pod before. I've said the same thing in this very seat, but we met at a KISS concert. I was in 5th grade. He was in 6th grade. We went to the same elementary school. We figured it out. And I was in 4th, you were in 5th. Who knows? It was Hot in the Shade Tour, 1990. Little Caesar opened. Slaughter in the middle slot. KISS, no makeup. Hot in the Shade Tour. That was when we met. And we've been talking about music and wrestling ever since.
I do the rock and wrestling podcast. I mean, my life is based on the love I have for rock and wrestling.
I love that. And you know what? I love... you guys tackle some cool shit on the pod. It's not your average...
It's been on hiatus for like a year, but I'm about to join up with like a new network, so to speak, of podcasts, and they're going to help me out.
I hope so, because honestly, dude, you know more shit about more shit than the average bear. And no, you do. Honestly, I consider you, at the very least, appear to me as like a musicologist and a cultural anthropologist. You're stronger in some areas than I am, and you have a deep well of understanding of areas of entertainment that people love. I mean, the biggest shit in the world are concerts and wrestling, and nobody can really match you on with sports too, and you can hang in sports
movies.
too.
I don't know anything about movies. I'm not a movie guy.
Let's talk about
big summer tours, big summer movies, big summer tours,
just big. Okay, let me ask you this straight up: because you just came through here and you showed me the video of an entire stadium full of people, and then a whole nother stadium full of people outside the stadium, 30,000 deep in the streets. 3 nights, Taylor.
Tailor-gating.
Right, tailor-gating. Taylor Mania, okay, is this bigger than like Thriller or Bad era Michael Jackson?
Would have to say that's the only thing you could probably compare it to. 3 nights in a football stadium in every city is too small for this performer. It's something that we've never seen before. Of course, at the Michael Jackson shows, I mean, there's just people getting passing out left and right. Just seeing him, people have such emotion, and like.
But some of that stuff we've learned was scripted. Like some of those scenes of Bedlam and Total Mania was filmmaking. But that Reddit post you showed me at tailgating was not.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Well, let's talk about the ticket price to begin with. People are paying $1,000 to sit in the worst seat in the house at a football stadium. So, she's gonna look like a bug. $1,000. You and I probably wouldn't pay to sit in the first 5 rows for our favorite rock bands or something like that. Like on a final tour, like something that would be like.
And this is just one night of 70 on a world tour.
She does $15 million a night, and the crazy number about all this, the 50,000 people outside, the 80,000, she's only 33 years old. She's going to be doing this for another 3 decades.
I think, look, there was a time where I demonized someone like Taylor Swift, just like not her personally, but like what she represented as like a recording artist, and like sort of like unfairly lumped her in as like, the next wave of Britney and Christina Aguilera and etc. And that's just me making a snap judgment from way far away, not giving a shit 10, 12 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously the Kanye incident, was very polarizing for both. It made people love or hate him. It made people really rally behind her. Or then when Kanye's whole like life spiraled out of control after that incident, it made people kind of demonize her. Like, and all along she was fucking cool as shit and graceful and tried to do the right thing. And he was the bad guy, but she kind of got painted as this like bitch or this sort of like snooty kind of fucking elitist, and none of that was true. It was just like media drama. And then some douchebag tried to like buy her catalog out from underneath her. Right, I'm saying. And instead of acquiescing, she said fuck you and re-recorded her whole catalog. And how much do her fans love her that they're out there buying those albums they already own, new versions, so that they can supplant the old version so that she can get paid. Like I the level of stannery, fandom, dedication, loyalty. I mean, I don't even have to like the music. I've never seen an artist capture like multiple generations like this deep. Yeah. Maybe MJ, maybe.
But and the important thing is too, it's not like this one hit wonder type like like no depth pop. Gum music. She's writing real songs. Like
right.
These people are getting the same thing that the fans that are going to see Bruce Springsteen. They're getting the same emotion. They're conquering the same issues. They're able to handle relationships different because of these songs. Like so, it's not just like ABC 1 2 3.
Sure, but I think her writing has evolved as she's gotten older and more mature, and like so she's got like her pop album. Her albums, her country albums, she has some music that's, kind of nods to Beyonce or whatever. She's influenced by stuff that's out there, but there's only one Taylor Swift. And honestly, I never gave a shit. I never was moved by the music. I only somewhat kind of felt sorry for her when like people were cruel to her after the Kanye thing. But she won. That dude is fucking way the hell out there. And she is literally the biggest artist in the world. I mean, maybe, like Bad Bunny might have put up comparable numbers globally.
Not even.
Right, but that's one guy, one cycle.
It's one guy, and it's 1 year.
Right.
We're going on like the 3rd year of Bad Bunny, right. So to speak. I don't know what it was, like
I think
10, 15 years ago.
I think we're 15 years into the Taylor Swift.
So her first tour, she opens up for Tim McGraw, I think. And then her next tour, if you look at it, she plays a couple like high schools and like some college basketball arenas. And by the end of the tour, she's playing Gillette Stadium. And that's her first tour. So it was stadiums by the end of the first tour, and then stadiums basically from there on. She played 5 nights at in LA, the Staples Center. stuff like that. But like, you know, to see her in the hockey arena must be like a huge deal for her fans.
It's like a underplay. The hockey arena underplay. Yeah, I'm just blown away by it, and I kind of just you can't do any a preview or discuss the summer tour without starting with her. I just can't, but you know, like people are like, oh, Fish, this and that, and like, or Bruce, or you think of these artists that like sell out wherever they go, but this is another fucking tier.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe you got like Beatlemania, MJ, and I think you can say her name in that breath.
Swifties, yeah.
And that's fucking crazy, dude.
It is. On TikTok, I see these TikToks that popped up like of, you know, the fans in other countries that don't speak English, and they just know every single word. It's absolutely amazing. But God bless them. Dead and Company.
All right.
The final tour.
Shore, upwards in the eagle-winged palace of the Queen, shining.
I know Brian already got to see one of the shows,
If
but
you want to call it that.
It's starting to pick up now that they're getting into the tour.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you lead the way on this one. Before we get into the Kreutzmann stuff, we've talked in the past on the air. Actually, we did like a Mayor Dead & Co. segment way back, and then we've talked a million times off air. And I'm going to just rip this bubbler real quick.
And when they say final tour, let's put that in perspective, fans. It's the final tour. That does not mean Mexico is off the table. That does not mean a residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas is going to happen. Yes, on Brian's podcast, you heard it first. They will probably be playing the Sphere in Las Vegas.
This
within a year.
I'm saying this iteration, like the Mayor,
John Mayer and Bob Weir
and Mickey, maybe.
I guess the new core four is John Mayer, Bob Weir,
Mickey,
and well, I was gonna say O'Teal and Chimenti. But yeah, I guess you got to talk about Mickey.
But Mickey sometimes takes shows off too.
He's doing really awesome this tour too. He's standing up.
I'm gonna tell you right now. You might say that this is the final tour and they'll do the Sphere. But my opinion is, if the health is there for all these guys, Shapiro is going to do GD60. Where? Who knows? And certainly won't be quite what Fairly Well was. And I don't even know, I don't know anything other than I was at the Park City Song Summit last year, and he gave a speech there, like a roundtable discussion, him and Jay Sweet from Newport Folk Festival, and Jay Blakesberg was in there, and Pete flat out said, if they'll do it, we'll do it. Like, he said it publicly in the spot. So I'm saying, if there's enough dollars and cents, I think you might see that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this.
But yeah, real quick, it makes sense, and I know people will be like, how can you compare these? But like, yeah, Motley Crue said, that's it, we're done, and now they're on tour again.
I will say
they signed in blood. Like, hey, this is our final chores. They made a big deal about it. Press conference with the president of Live Nation.
What was the reason then why did they come back?
Because the Netflix movie was so popular that they had to play for this new generation of fans.
That movie was terrible. The book is great, but the movie's terrible. But we're going to talk McMars too. But I want to talk Kreutzmann, and then we'll talk a little bit about Dead & Co. Like, I was kind of bored by the Jazz Fest show. I'm told the Cornell second set was next level. And, dude, people are raving about the Forum. And honestly, dude, when I hear him count off Minglewood, and I can get to the corner store and buy a 40 and get back before the first verse starts, I know, I'm not going to be digging this. And I know it's like
I know
dead
we're
and
for a good
slow,
time.
Dead and slow, whatever.
It's been picked up a lot more, but either way.
Look, do you think that that's a Jay Lane situation? Do you think that that's Bob Weir listening to the fans saying, well, people say we're playing slow?
Because the fans have been saying that for 3 years.
Right, but Weir calls if you watch, he counts the band in.
I think it's a Jay Lane factor.
No, I think it's a reactionary. People are talking shit, so we're
Final tour, a little bit of excitement. They want to bring new oomph to the songs.
I think everything about this has been a fucking disgraceful, commodified cash grab. Okay. Irving, Azoff, on down, Mayer, all that stuff. And this is somebody who was in jail during GD50. I had every reason to want to enjoy Dead & Company because I was excluded from GD50. But if you're going to make all this pomp and circumstance and send them off and then immediately do some fucking cover band version of the real band immediately, it felt like cash grab, which clearly it was. And then now, all these years later, they're kind of repackaging the whole send-off fairly well in a final, quote, tour, and then they can't even keep Bill the drummer. So what the fuck is that about? Why is Bill not playing?
I didn't get to finish my comparison with Mötley Crüe, but you helped me out. It's the rock and roll business. That's what they do. Like bands just make it's your money. Go grab it. And it's. I'm not saying like Bob Weir gets out of the bed in the morning and says he wants to make money. No, Bob Weir is a musician that plays music for a living, and he gets paid a lot of money to do it.
I get that, but the whole like marketing packaging of Fare Thee Well, then in Dead & Company, now we're saying goodbye the final time. How many times do we say goodbye to the Grateful Dead songbook?
Yeah, I mean, they have.
We said goodbye to the Dead.
That's what I'm trying to say to you. Like, without like saying like, because people take it a lot more serious than other bands, and I don't want to offend anyone, but the Grateful Dead are no different than Mötley Crüe and Kiss
when it comes.
The Who never had a final.
Yes, they did.
Like 89. 89. It was called I'm sorry. My head was thinking the Stones. People always say the Stones.
No,
the Stones never had a final tour. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, correct. But they're always going to be out there as long as people want to see them. That's just how it is.
But I think when Jay-Z retired as a rapper, then he came back. Okay, so
how many times did Shawn Michaels retire?
HBK can do what he wants. That said, back to Bill. Okay, so the Fare Thee Well thing happens. Trey, the core four, it's beautiful, right? And then immediately they peel off the Rhythm Devils and Bobby with Mayer. So now, all these years later, they're amping you up for the final tour. They got the Cornell revisited.
I mean, that guy's...
He's great, but he's not he's a fucking hired gun.
He's the head of the jam world.
I think he's better than fucking Mayer for the situation, but that doesn't matter.
I think they're all great together.
They're... whatever. Jason, listen to me here. Stop avoiding the Kreutzmann thing. Why can they, in your opinion... did they have to force him out, or did this happen? This fissure at the last minute. Is it health? Is it drama? Is it money? Like, how do you lose an OG? I could see. Okay, we don't have a Teal for the final tour, or heaven forbid, we don't have Mayer for the final tour, but no Bill the drummer. That's a fucking deal breaker.
Well, as you know, leading up to this final tour, he had missed tons of shows, so to speak. On tours before this, even would leave mid-show, mid-sets,
right,
mid-songs, etc.
So why not announce it like that? This is a health. Bill's not able to play. He came down to Jazz Fest and sat in and played his own Billing the Kids shit.
Reiterate the fact, it's a scummy business. It's not called Music Friends. It's
okay, but why are they doing it? Why?
Because they're selling tickets, so they held out to the last minute. They knew Bill Kreutzmann probably was not playing 2 weeks before.
But why are they not using his health? Why are they saying creative differences and then he's out playing until 4 a.m. in New Orleans?
It's a simple I mean, I can't defend them. We know that they're just
opinion. Yeah. Why did this happen 2 weeks out?
My opinion is they knew he probably wasn't playing a while ago, and they just wanted to continue to sell tickets.
But I'm saying, okay, so let's say they announce it when they did and all that, but why creative differences and then he goes out and plays gigs instead of saying, hey, I think people would be understanding. Like,
one gig is a whole lot different than going on a stadium rock tour. You have to go through a insurance thing to go on a tour. So it's possible he didn't pass the test.
Okay, then why not say so? Why this creative what kind of creative difference?
They're not going to diminish the guy if that's, they're giving the opportunity. You think this is the first time they lied to the fans?
No, I'm saying creative differences is such a
How can you have creative differences on songs you've been playing together for 65 years?
Exactly. That's my point.
We all read through it. Yeah.
Our intelligence.
Yeah. Well, so does wrestling. I don't understand what you're getting at.
I'm getting at the fact that I feel betrayed already. Dead and Company feels like a betrayal of Fairly Well to begin with.
I agree.
And now we're losing Billy Kay. I'm not interested in seeing...
theoretically it feels like a betrayal, but musically it doesn't. I really enjoyed what Dead and Company brought to.
Some say they were better than the Trey.
Well,
Fairly Well.
I think that's silly to compare them to because they got to play 7 shows together with a 2-3 weeks of practicing. These guys, they get
a band for 6 years.
Yeah, they're playing in stadiums together with the monitors and everything, getting to learn how to real physically play together, as opposed to what, All right, guys. Trey's in a dungeon trying to learn songs while those guys are out, thinking about where they're going to buy their next jet.
You think the hired guns made a bunch of money in Deadco? Like the Chimentis and the Mayer did, for sure.
John Mayer, of course he did. He makes a lot more money on his own than he does with Dead and Company, so he's not going to take a pay cut.
Does he?
He sells out hockey arenas by himself, and he's got, he has hired guns, so it's all his money. The trio. Actually, he's selling out hockey arenas right now with an acoustic show.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, that guy, he's got a fan base, nothing like Taylor, but Taylor's fans turned on him, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fans turning, one of my first concerts was Motley Crue on the Dr. Feelgood tour in '89. And we've always kind of enjoyed Motley, even in tongue-in-cheek. They're not even really on tour in the U.S. this summer. Last summer was their U.S. tour. But we got to talk Mick Mars, because that's Bill Kreutzmann level betrayal.
Once again...
They forced him out, and then they told us it was his call that he couldn't tour anymore.
And then, of course, he comes out saying it wasn't, and he's suing the band now.
And he's saying they're playing the backing tracks, and he was the only one live.
And then Bob Rock, did you see that? Came out today and said Nikki Sixx doesn't play on most of the Motley Crue records.
Oh, I love it. Dude, honestly, Nikki, I can't fucking stand him anymore. He used to be the baddest dude. Now, everything from the fucking make-believe Heroin Diaries bullshit to this, he acts like he's like this arbiter of cool, and he's the biggest fucking tool, and he can't play. But the bottom line is, he can do whatever he wants, as far as I'm concerned. But dissing Mick Mars, who carried this band, who's the only reason that they ever had like a legitimate like sound. You know what I mean?
They had to hire like the greatest hired gun guitar player,
the Josh Freese of guitar work,
to cover this guy's riffs, bro.
Right.
This guy wrote the greatest.
So now they say Mick's out, he doesn't want to tour anymore. Then they try to form new LLCs with new splits, so Mick doesn't get the same percentage of whatever his split was. Some people say, hey, well, he's not in the band anymore, so why would he get the same split? Well, that wasn't the deal when he agreed to step away. But the biggest problem is the fact that they lied on him and dissed him and said he was like fucking up, not playing the right shit. And like coming from Nikki, it's the most preposterous shit ever.
Yeah, two of the other guys on stage aren't playing the right shit either.
Right, and they're just such a joke. So then magically, out of nowhere, they get added to this NFL draft party, which they clearly were playing live because it was so bad, and just terrible. So I gotta say,
they were trying to prove a point that night.
I do.
Oh, we play live because of the allegations were right there the week before, 2 weeks before. and they came out and just shit the bed, which
because if you notice in their live shows, like Nicky's backup mic is like flying through the air, and he like stops and sings it, and then it keeps moving, and fucking Vince,
he stares at it like the sun.
But I do think that they record them like it's really current Vince singing, because it's still shitty.
Yeah.
But he's definitely singing along to a backing track.
100%. Especially for like certain things. Like like during like the verses, he's got to sing them.
Right.
But like
even then, I think he's singing along to a backing track.
Maybe on some easier songs, but there's times like when there's you can totally tell because he walks away and there's like nothing.
Right. Right.
But
or like the shouts on shout.
Yeah.
Those are pumped.
Those
in.
are the same ones from the pump. They've been pumping that one.
Or he's the one who called Dr. Figo. But we used to think it was the nurses singing that shit. But there was backing tracks back then too.
The band is a fraud.
Let it be known. And I feel like, dude, I'm the type of dude that sits and watches these like YouTube videos of these dudes like dissecting Motley's performance. Like, there's Tommy's hi-hats, but he's not even sitting on the kit yet. Like breaking it down.
I remember that one. It's crazy what they've turned into, but whatever. I mean, it's just another example of like how, people don't really care. They're more in it for the entertainment. They saw this movie and they want to see them again.
What do you think of Metallica new album tour? Are you feeling the 72 season? Because they're another one of our favorite bands, and actually, even all the shit that they've been through, they haven't betrayed or embarrassed us like a Motley Crue. I still love Metallica,
100%.
but the new album doesn't really click for me.
It's okay. The last few records, there's been like some really high points to them, and then like some filler. I hate to say stuff like that about such great musicians, because even them on their worst track is like still better than like Shinedown or something, But this, once again, Metallica reinventing themselves, doing something fun for themselves, doing something fun for the fans to make the show fun. So they're going to come to every city, play 2 shows, and it's going to be a completely different show each night. Obviously, their catalog is humongous, and they can do that, and it's going to be so fun each night, especially for those diehard Metallica fans that are going to go both nights.
But do you think they're going to date? Well, dude, plenty of us go both nights. Metallica played in San Francisco. I went 2 nights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm more like wondering, do you think that it's just going to be like the same 2 set lists kind of back and forth? Or do you think that they're going to be playing like fucking weird, like Sweet Amber? Deep cuts
if
and
you
shit?
look, they're playing. It's not just like
Reload Side B.
It's not just like a 50-song pool. It's only been a couple nights in Europe, and it's already there's songs that don't get played in every city. It's gonna be fun. They got the Pantera opening.
Right. I was going to get to that, but I want to first, we can talk about Pantera.
Yeah, no.
The Metallica thing, like, I respect them because they're, like, still give a shit, still put out new music, and at the same time, it's when you go to the show, it's a nostalgia thing.
What I think about them, too, what they do now is they're very collaborative with, like, people outside of Metallica. That they're willing to help, like, create ideas with, create stage, create art with. And that's what happened here. Someone threw an idea at them. I'm sure it wasn't theirs. It kind of reminiscent of that video that goes around where Kirk Hammett brings up Fish during one of their
talking about
rehearsals. Yeah, well, I guess so. Metallica films some of the rehearsal every night for the fan club, They do a lot of stuff for their fan club. It's very
Yeah, I remember.
expensive, but you know, for like $2,500, they'll come shake your hand and give you a guitar pick.
Right. Or when the Orion Festival, you get tons of perks if you were in the fan club.
So Kirk Hammett, you know, he's like, oh, we sounded real fishy there because I got into a jam, you know. I think Lars brings it up. He's like, oh, they're playing 13 nights at Madison Square Garden, and they're playing a different song the whole time. You know, different songs, never repeating songs. And James goes, oh my God, that sounds like a nightmare. You know, I guess 13 nights is a lot, but James isn't worried to tackle 2 nights of no repeats.
He's got some issues, James. I mean, not besides the issues we know about, in terms of like stage fright and whatever. Do you remember he had like an on-stage emotional break down in South America where he needed like hugs and shit? And I'm just saying, it's beautiful that a guy like James is willing to be that emotional. But I think like when you see him, he's not the type of dude that wants to rehearse 200 songs so that all of them are ready to go. He wants to have 2 nights worth of killers.
Yeah.
And they might, you know, mix one more in here or there.
And they jam like every night, like Trujillo and Kirk Hammett will like intertwine jam.
That's
and
hardly a
stuff.
jam.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
fun.
band practice, a ride on D, you know, and then AC/DC jam. Now, you talk about Pantera. I'm anti-Pantera reunion. I think it's another commodification. It's like a Dead and Company, but metal.
Music
you
friends.
Know? Why? Why do we have to have like 50-something-year-old Phil who can't sing or move, and Rex plus I love Charlie. I love Anthrax, and fucking Zach Wilde. This is some bullshit. This is just some, again. So another generation can hear Pantera songs?
100%. So the best thing you can do, like when you get to a certain, you know, level in the music business is like, then you go away for a little bit, you know? It doesn't matter who you are, Fall Out Boy, whoever, you know, you go away for 5 years and then you're way more popular than you were because a whole new generation crop of people now, you know, that want to see your music, plus your original fans, etc. Now you got a band that's been away for 21 years, or I'll take it as, you know, to what you're saying, a brand name that's been away for 21 years, and people are like, fuck, how can we put this together? It's been talked about for years and years, you know, and they finally got
subject.
Yeah. Anthrax is like playing shows like with
another drummer, right?
It's so crazy.
It is crazy, you know.
It's like ruining the business.
I just like, and I loved Pantera, and then obviously some of the, you know, some of the stuff
music friends.
You can't really get behind some of their imagery and the racist stuff with Phil, but you know, I've always loved Pantera, but I'm not interested in seeing this fucking offshoot.
Now, once again, is you think Phil is a racist, or you think Phil is a dummy that says stupid shit on stage?
I think he probably was, and then hopefully kind of matured or learned from his like public scolding. But they say the alcohol is like, you know, just kind of makes you be who you really are. And he was so sidebar. We already know he said to the press that Dime should be beaten before Dime was murdered, right? We know that, and that's why he wasn't welcome in the Abbott family for a while. Wasn't allowed at the funeral, right? So, but then over time, Vinny aside, the family called Rita, Dime's former lady. You know, they were never married, but basically his widow, right? She says, "Okay, Phil, you can play Dime Bash this year." So Phil and a band come together to play Dime Bash. Phil gets so fucked up. And he's like Sieg hailing and white power, this and that on stage, right? So, do I think he's a racist? I don't know. But when he got really fucked up at a Dime memorial show, he fucking started doing Hitler shit. Yeah. So, it's hard. And then again, people say that changed him and he got his life together since then. And
But he's still a man in his like late 30s at that point. Or
yeah.
Early 40s. You know, you have to assume like, you know, he has...
So I don't know whether he is or isn't. I do know that countries in Europe that have like severe like anti-Nazi
Yeah.
laws won't let them play.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that tells you what you need to know. I know.
Sami Zayn's allowed to go to Saudi Arabia, but Phil Anselmo can't go to
I
Germany.
think if he would come out, you know, and address it again and be
Yeah.
like, hey, like, look, dude, I was fucked up and here's what I learned, I think people would be inclined to forgive. But, and I'm not holding a grudge. It's like, I hold more of a grudge against Michael Travis from String Cheese Incident than I do against Phil Anselmo.
You know, it's funny, like, so you're saying...
And that guy made one bad Facebook post.
But you're saying if you give the generic response, you'll forgive him.
No, this is a decade later.
No.
I'm saying now, a decade later, if he would come out and be like, here's what I've learned in the 10 years since I did this dumb shit.
Okay.
Not 2 weeks later, publicists type up
Yeah,
the
no, that's what I'm
speech.
saying. I thought, you know, that just what's like popped in my head, so it was a bad thing.
I think 10 years is a long time. But,
of course.
Okay, before we get into Fish, which is probably what the average person wants to hear us talk about, what excites you this summer?
The Foo Fighters just got back on the road with the new
Right.
drummer that you mentioned before.
Josh Freese. Okay, what do you think about that choice?
But, they went with the greatest drummer, like, you could hire for this situation.
The John 5.
Yeah, the John, exactly. Like, so it's a perfect fit. That I watched some of the YouTube from the other night, and like, that, you know, drum solo at the end of "There Goes My Hero," or I guess that's the name of the song. I'm not a big Foo guy.
Me either.
But he crushes it. It looked great. People were helping. It was very awesome.
Do you think
he's awesome?
He was
in the Replacements? No pun intended.
He was in Guns N' Roses
Yeah.
for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Offspring for 15 minutes.
He never played a show with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, but his name was attached to them for a while.
Yes.
All right, and like when like Youth was producing and like Zakk Wylde was coming in to play guitar, like. But hey, do you think other than Taylor is that the biggest ticket, Foo Fighters?
Oh yeah. But I'll tell you what's becoming the surprise tour this summer. I think they're about 3 shows in. I've watched some of it. The Cure.
No surprise here, bro. I knew it was going to be huge.
It's opening time down on Fascination Street. Let's cut the conversation, get out of bed. Cause I feel I'm waiting, paling, and I'm begging to drag you down with me. To kick the last nail in ya, like you and I can like to scream if you open your mouth. I can't be responsible for crime or goes in. Camera comes out, pull your hair, pull your pound, and let's move to the beat. You know that it's over. Sit down, sit on my shoulder. So just pull your back, pull your feet. It's an open time, down a Fascination Street.
Dude, and he's like having so much fun on stage, Robert Smith. He does.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, you should. I've seen some like TikToks of him at the hotel where he's in non-black clothing and stuff.
What does he look like in like non-Robert Smith?
He's
Robert
wearing
Smith?
shorts, bro. It's
Oh
so
my God.
funny. I'll have to show it to you. When
No
we're done
makeup?
this. Yeah, and he just, he's just sitting there having fun just with the fans in the lobby. It's just something you've never seen. I guess everyone didn't have a phone like this, especially the last time they were out.
Of course not. Well, he had all that. He was tweeting a lot about the Ticketmaster on sales, and he actually got people $10 back.
Yeah, he got people a lot.
$10.
And their merchandise is cheap too. It's like $25 shirts, like $30, $40 hoodies. So I've said it to people.
Would you rock a Cure hoodie? I would.
Yeah, those guys are amazing.
The go-to smile, split them vows.
Bling, bling,
bling. Hey, got to give birth to church, but motherfuckers wanna ask this earth,
what good do your words do?
Say what?
If they can't understand you? I do. What good do your words do? If they can't understand you? Don't go talking that shit. I do.
What shit?
I do.
Bridge.
Another one of your favorites back on the road and stepping it up to bigger places, Erykah Badu.
I know. I'm concerned. The arena tour, I mean, granted, she sold out the Greek. So that's the next step.
Yeah.
But arenas?
Yeah, I
Badu?
mean, soul singers do well. I mean, as long as you know how to control the audience.
They should be doing like Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
Theater, like the way they did for like the Buckethead era Guns.
Yeah,
you know?
a Sade played arenas. And
Sade is fucking like.
I thought you were just talking about maybe the music itself. Would it go
Sade
over well?
plays once every 12, 15 years. Yeah.
Speaking of one every 12 years, Duran Duran, they tour every other year, but it's Duran Duran touring with Chic this summer, which they always tour together. Those two bands have been touring together for years.
That's like so much cocaine.
But
back
in
the
New York, it's Duran Duran, Chic, Grace Jones.
Okay.
When is the last time Grace Jones played a show? Are
She's
you
booked
kidding
at
me?
the Blue Note this summer.
Wow,
Also.
we should go catch one.
Yeah, it's
if you're
I
around.
saw it on the schedule. She's on the Blue Note. But yeah, I guess she's getting back into it. Let me ask you this, because shout out to my man Johnny who talked to me about Turnstile the first time I met him. But you got Turnstile Blink on there, and I hear Turnstile's name everywhere. So A, I'm wondering, do they even need to open for Blink? They're already on their way. And B, does Blink? Okay, I hate fucking Blink, but you've always loved them. Does it need to be Hoppus, DeLonge, and fucking Travis? Because they toured as Blink without one of them, right?
But it didn't do this.
So this is considered like a quote unquote reunion.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Are they playing hockey arenas?
Yeah, sold out like crazy ticket prices. They just played Madison Square Garden the other night. 2 nights at Madison Square Garden. They're playing, where the Sixers play when they come to Philly.
Are they getting
they're headlining
soccer dads?
They're,
Like, who's
yeah, I
coming to
mean,
these
yeah,
shows?
their fans are now in their 40s, And
Still fart jokes
but
and
once
shit?
again, also all those young kids. Oh yeah,
And then like the Kardashian vibe, right there. That's part of it now too, right? Isn't Barker?
They headlined Coachella, so it was like days after
Right.
the Dalai Lama kissing the kid,
Oh,
and they made it. So of course they had to make a joke about it. They're like, "Oh, I just got back from the Dalai Lama kissing booth," some shit like that. But yeah, they're still topical if that's what you're asking.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
But back to what you're saying. I don't know why Turnstile did it, except for they probably just love Blink-182 because they're
You think that's what it is? 'Cause
Yeah.
They don't need this. They're
No,
fucking
not
hot
at all.
as balls.
They're gonna wind up playing hockey arenas on their own someday, if not, sooner than later.
So at what point in time does a hardcore band sell out? Because Turnstile, like you said, is Hate 5-6. They're core. They came from the ground up. They like have the indie cred, the hardcore cred. Yet like they're playing this fucking like Hot Topic tour with fucking Blink, and then they're gonna
Other hardcore bands will now become successful too
because of them. You
Yeah.
think they'll be bigger than Hatebreed?
Oh, there are. I mean, it's funny you say that. I was at the tattoo shop a couple months ago, and we were talking about Hatebreed is the biggest hardcore band of all time, but obviously now it's Turnstile. Their song was in a Taco Bell commercial.
Well, right there, that's not too hardcore.
That's not their fault. I mean that they got
I'll
so
take the
popular.
check.
What are you gonna do? Not take the money? You have to. It's called the music business. I said that 50 times today. I know, but that's what it is. People start sending you these offers. You never thought you would get that offer.
Some guys stay core for life.
Yeah.
Like the Fugazi guy and McKay. Like people have always tried to.
Very few and far between. The Clash never did it. The Clash
Right.
were offered more money than you could imagine. It might have happened. He unfortunately
Even Rage cracked.
Yeah.
And then.
But they didn't really
They cracked. They got back together and started taking checks to play arenas.
Yeah, but what do you mean they cracked? They
were like, we're going out on top. Biggest band in the world. No amount of money is going to lure us back. They came back in 09, Coachella, and like a few festival hits.
Wait, did they make a statement we're done?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot that.
Yeah, and they came for Zach so many times, and then Prophets of Rage,
which he didn't approve of.
No.
Yeah.
And then that was a tour. I think maybe the last time we did one of these, we talked about the forthcoming Rage tour.
Okay.
Yeah,
which
I never got to see.
I saw one of the nights at Madison Square Garden. It was amazing.
They canceled us because of the injury, and honestly, I'm lucky that I was at the Electric Factory in '96, so I don't.
Yeah, no, you saw the real deal.
Yeah. And I saw him on the battle tour also with Gangstar.
I saw him at the Troc.
Yeah, wow. I walked by the former Troc yesterday. I went to Dave's to get some Chinese.
Yeah,
it's tough to see the Troc like that.
Yeah,
we saw so many. What was your favorite Troc show ever?
Rage.
Yeah. I would say mine was probably Cinderella.
I saw the Counting Crows play there under a fake name. That was pretty crazy.
I wish we got to see that Blind Melon show there.
Rollins Band on the End of the Silence tour.
Wow. Yeah.
Dave O'Connor.
He was playing
stage
Halloween.
dived, and not one person called him, and you heard the
thump.
Oh, it was tremendous. He
took
felt
a bump.
terrible. I felt terrible. Everyone felt terrible.
I haven't heard the DOCs in a long time. All right, let's finish with the Fish from Vermont.
Yep. Well, you saw, I guess, as part of the spring tour. Is that what?
Yeah. I saw 3 nights at the Greek. So it's funny. My cousin just hit me up talking to me about how great he listened back to Hollywood. From the outside looking in, what were your thoughts of the spring tour?
I thought it was, the whole thing's great. Like, I don't think Fish it's so different than the Grateful Dead, so to speak. Like, because that's I guess. Where we
when you say the Grateful Dead, do you mean Dead and Company, or you
no,
mean
the Grateful Dead?
Okay.
Because that's where we get all of our sports music talk comparison.
Right.
When it comes to So I feel like Fish has so much more material, this and that, than they play from, and they've gone in a little bit of a different direction in their latter years. So it's hard to dissect it like that. Whereas I thought the whole thing was they just get on stage and they perform magic every night, Some nights the magic isn't as magicful, but it's always magic.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time where I was super hypercritical, and then there was a time where I could give a shit, and I kind of was over it. And then after several times I've come back to it and kind of with my tail between my legs and been I really love this band.
When you see something so special 200, 300 times, even the specialness will sometimes wear off on you, but you then realize, oh my God, this is so special.
Right. Well, what was funny is everybody was raving about the first night of the Greek with that tweezer and the simple that followed. And look, part of the tweezer was great and the simple was great. And I enjoyed myself, but at no time really was I totally blown away. And then the next night they played tons of sappy, slow ballads, and that the normal Fish nerd critical guy that I am would be this fucking boring. But I was there with my wife and we're at the Greek and the moon is huge, and I was fucking love Farmhouse. What? So it's set and setting, and so my whole reaction was I had an amazing time at the shows, but I didn't really think that the shows were great Fish shows. I just love the experience. That's where I'm at with it right now, in general.
If you ever want to just have an awesome time, you know what to do.
Right. But at the same time, my cousin says they're playing in Hollywood is as good as it gets, and it's
some nights they get there, but.
All right, what are you looking forward to? You just doing the Garden?
No, I'm going to go to 9 shows. We'll see 2 at the Man and 7 at Madison Square Garden.
Wow, when's the Man?
I guess the 2 nights before the Garden, July something.
I'm just trying to think. I might have to come back for mom stuff. Might accidentally fall into some Fish shows.
I accidentally saw you at a Chicago Fish concert.
That was a true accident. That story deserves its own pod someday.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Well, we should do this more often. We have good conversations. People always like it. You're doing 9 shows, so I guess that's just 7 at the Garden?
7 at the Garden.
And 2 at the Man.
Yeah.
And no dicks?
I have, I think they've played Madison Square Garden 70-something times. I've missed 4.
It's crazy how that fucking Harry Styles came through and stole the belt from them.
Not really.
He is the king of MSG.
Come on, you're just looking for anything to give him a little fun.
No, I'm telling you. It's Harry's house, no pun intended.
No, if anything, it's Billy Joel who sucks.
No. I'm going to be honest, man. It's Harry's house.
It's not Harry's house, bro. We'll see him in 10 years what he's doing.
All right.
You got to do it for a little bit. Trey's been doing it since the 90s, bro.
Kiss my ass, you fucking tool.